Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I'll bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. Three-Man Front.
11 o'clock here on Three-Man Front on this Monday. Landrum Roberts, Pat Smith, John Sabay are producing the show. Thanks for making time for us as we get closer to the college football season. What does that mean? We had some of our first scrimmages of the fall camp, so to speak, in Tuscaloosa, here in Birmingham with UAB, and also in the plains of Auburn. I talked with Nathan King of Auburn Undercover about the things coming out of the program there under first-year head coach Brian Harsin, discuss what UAB had done and some of the standouts there at Saturday's scrimmage, and, of course, talking Alabama. Here's Coach Nick Saban on his quarterback, Bryce Young.
I think Bryce did a good job today. I think we, have to play well around Bryce. At times today I didn't think maybe we did as good a job of that as we need to. It's all 11 guys. It's the offensive line, it's the receivers, it's all 11 guys, so that he'll have, more opportunities to make plays. But I think when he had opportunities today, he did a really good job. So, I was pleased with his performance. I'm sure if you ask him, he'll be the first one to say, he's looking forward to working to, try to improve and, improve the production overall in terms of our execution on offense, and that's what's going to make us better.
All right, so there's Nick Saban. No one better to talk about it than Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, joining us here on Three-Man Front on the Michelob Ultra Hotline. Rodney, hope you're doing well. Bryce Young, his development, what's expected? Of course, 22 pass attempts so far in his young Alabama career. What has been the takeaways and what you are learning about some of those practices and the scrimmage and how he performed?
Well, I think, the expectations or the hopes for Bryce Young remain, what we've always heard, that, obviously he's a very talented guy. And, I think sometimes what we forget last year heading into the season, he had little preparation. He came in early as an early enrollee in January of 2020, and then spring practice was canceled, so he missed all those opportunities. Last year in August camp, he missed 10 or 12 days after he got sick. That kind of put him behind. He missed a scrimmage or so. So his development heading into last season was limited. And then he had a big spring. I think he had an outstanding spring, took some big steps. And I know that everything I hear in terms of the camp right now, how he's done, because as you guys know, we're closed out. Media is closed. We don't have much of an opportunity to view. But everything we hear, he's done extremely well. And I think he's got a promising future.
In regards to the running backs, all indications are that Brian Robinson and Jace McClellan had a really good scrimmage. But the storyline that I keep hearing is the fact that Trey Sanders was out there. I think he even had a touchdown on Saturday. Kind of talk about Trey and where do you see him in regards to the way that the whole running back room is going to line up come the fall?
Yeah, Trey's made an amazing recovery from those automobile injuries he suffered last November, and he's doing an excellent job. Everything we had heard heading into the scrimmage was that how good he had looked in the summer 7-on-7s. He was moving extremely well. I think the one question was, how is he going to respond when the contact starts? And apparently he did extremely well on Saturday. He was a standout. He did have a touchdown reception from Bryce Young. By the way, Bryce had 3 TDs is our understanding, 3 touchdown passes in the scrimmage, and one of those to Trey. And listen, I think when you look at this running back room, we've talked about it before, it's pretty stacked. Brian Robinson, Jace McClellan, Trey Sanders, Roy Dale Williams, the true freshman, Kamara Wheaton doing really well also. So it's a pretty stacked room, and I think what we're going to see this year is, and a lot of people ask this, will we see Brian Robinson carrying the load kind of like Najee did last year, or more by committee? And I would think what I would expect is we're going to see a lot of those guys. We're going to see more of a committee type situation, I think, in terms of the running backs.
All right, Rodney Orr of Tighter Insider joining us here on Three Man Front and Jocks 94.5 on the Michelob Ultra Hotline. The offensive line position, you've had some guys that have been dinged up. You got some newcomers, talented, albeit Evan Neal, everybody knows about him. The early signs, what we're seeing here early in this fall camp of the offensive line and how some of those pieces are gelling together.
Yeah, that made it extremely difficult in the scrimmage on Saturday when you have Evan Neal out, you have Chris Owens out, and again, nothing major, just minor type things, and then also Kendall Randolph at the right tackle spot's been running with the ones and doing really well. He's had a great summer, and then all of a sudden he goes down early in the scrimmage with a minor ankle injury. So that kind of limited things, there. It certainly hampered the offensive production in the scrimmage, but I think that the foundation is there with Chris Owens, who did really well. He started previous to last year, some games, and then in the playoffs last year, he did a great job against Notre Dame and Ohio State at center, filling in for Landon Dickerson. And we know about Evan Neal. He's a future probably top 10 pick this coming year as a left tackle. And I think Emil Ekiyor is one of the more underrated guards in the country at right guard. So I think that's a great foundation. I know there's a lot of excitement about Javian Cohen at left guard. And I think that battle at right tackle is the one to really keep an eye on. We mentioned Randolph going down. That might open the door for a five-star freshman, J.C. Latham, who I know they have a lot of promise. He certainly has a lot of promise. And then Damian George is another player that's competed at that position, a sophomore. It's got a lot of talent, could play tackle, could play guard. So that right tackle spot, I think that's the position to really watch on that offensive line.
As far as the defense goes, I know a lot of people will always throw out the terms of, the best ever. This unit is, 1992-esque or whatever the case may be. But I wanted to ask you in particular about this year's linebacking core, because all indications, once again, is that they've been pretty dominant, not only in practice, but on the scrimmage on Saturday night. Could this, and again, Rodney, I'm not saying that it's going to be, but could this be one of the better linebacking groups that you've seen at Alabama?
One of the better, yeah. I think that's a fair way to put it. I mean, I think that certainly when you look at the guys on the outside, Will Anderson, Chris Allen, those guys are potential All-Americans. Chris Braswell is a player that's really looking good outside, along with Drew Sanders. You've got Quandarius Robinson. They're a local kid there from Birmingham who's doing really well. King Makuta is another one. They've got two true freshmen, Keanu Coote and Dallas Turner. They're outstanding looking prospects. So that's about 8 guys right there on the outside. You look at the inside, I don't think there's any question this group they have right now is probably the best they've had in a few years for sure. When you talk about Christian Harris, certainly one of the more athletic inside backers in the country. I think Henry To'oTo'o he's just a pure inside backer. I mean, he has got those instincts that you look for. He's a signal caller. I think he's a big addition. I think Jalen Moody, too, is certainly competing to play as well. And we saw what he did at the end of the last year when he got his opportunities. Deontay Lawson, I think that's a name Alabama fans, if you haven't heard of him, you certainly want to file that one away. Deontay Lawson, true freshman out of Mobile. I think he's a future star. So, and they've got some other, young inside backers that I think have a chance to be really good and look good in camp. So right now, yeah, I think when you look at that linebacker group, they certainly have a lot of potential.
Well, Rodney, Fedarian Mathis not participating this weekend. LeBrian Ray, he's been out with the groin injury. What's the prognosis on those two particular players?
Yeah, I think Ray may be back in a week or so. I was told this weekend that this groin injury wasn't quite as significant as they originally thought. So he may be back. I don't know if it'll be this week or early next week, but the thought was at this point was that he would be able to make it back here relatively soon. So that's good news. We know he's struggled with a lot of injuries, certainly a very talented guy. And then I think Fedarian will be fine. It's my understanding. He should be okay. Not sure if he'll be back today or not, but he should not be limited too much, I don't think. And again, I think the defensive line, I think they're really confident now that they've got a group of guys that they can rotate. And in fact, Nick Saban was asked about that, and he said they had 8 or 9 that they could rotate in and feel comfortable with. And it's a pretty good group. And keep those guys fresh. And, they've been down on those numbers, as you know, the last few years, but now they're getting them back to where they were, say, 2016 or so.
I wanted to ask you about a couple younger guys on defense and talk a little bit about the buzz you're hearing about. I'm talking about cornerback Jaquez Robinson and also true freshman Terrion Arnold. Talk to us a little bit about those two guys.
Yeah, Jaquez Robinson from Florida. Well, both of them actually. Jaquez from the Jacksonville area, and then Terrion Arnold from Tallahassee. Both outstanding recruits, obviously. Jaquez has played corner. Terrion Arnold could play all over the place. He was a 5-star safety. He's been working at corner, looking very good. Those guys certainly are adding some depth right now to that secondary. They've got a very, very good group, to the extent where when you look at it right now, they've got a player, Brian Branch, who they've worked at several positions. He started when Malachi Moore went down at the star position in the playoffs. Did a tremendous job as a freshman, and he's talented enough right now. They've got to trying to find a place to get him on the field because he's just, he's that good. And so you mentioned those two, Robinson, Terrion Arnold. They've got some other guys, Marcus Banks, and obviously Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I think right now the youth and the talent in that secondary is it's looking really good. Kind of very similar to what you've got at wide receiver. Now, they may not have 4 future first-rounders at wide receiver, but you look at this talented group of young receivers, I think a lot of them had good performances on Saturday, and so I think there's a lot of promise at both of those spots.
Well, I can't let you go without at least getting you to comment about the Australian punter, James Burnip, because apparently if it's enough to where Nick Saban comments about him, I think it would be worthy of at least asking you
absolutely
anything you know in his background. Obviously, he's from Australia, but how did he end up in Tuscaloosa?
Well, it is a crazy story because he's never actually kicked in a game, period. Wow. I'm talking high school. He's never kicked in a game, never.
Wow.
Here's the story is there's a school there that develops these kickers, and they've sent others to various schools, and they develop these kickers, and even though they don't have an opportunity to kick in games, they do, certainly get a great deal of training, and, he was seen by numerous schools. In fact, he was headed to Ole Miss, actually, when Alabama stepped in and gave him a late offer to come here. And so he can kick it in any way you want it. And what I mean is Saturday, for example, he kicked the rugby style or the running kick as you've seen it. We've never seen that at Alabama, but we've seen it across the country. I understand he kicked traditional style, punted traditional style, and also had some good pooch kicks. So looks like he has a lot of versatility, and he's going to be competing. He is competing with Jack Martin, the transfer from Troy, averaged, around 46 yards a punt last year. So it looks like out of those two, and there's some others competing as well, but it looks like they might be able to find their answer to maybe having more consistency this year.
All right. Finally, I know you briefly touched on the wide receivers, but as far as some of the newcomers, some of the guys, maybe it's a Hall that we saw shine. How's their progression? What does it look like for those guys and maybe solidifying that wide receiving core?
Yeah, and when we speak of newcomers too, let's include Jamison Williams, the transfer from Ohio State, 10'4", 900-meter guy. He was a starter there at Ohio State in their 3-wide set. And he's looked really good. Obviously, they're really confident with him. He's going to have a chance to be a starter here. I would guess he will be as we speak today. And then also you mentioned Ajay Hall. We've seen him. He's continued to look good. Javon Baker is another young receiver that was here last year as a sophomore. This year's continues to shine. Ja'Cory Brooks, 5-star recruit, had a good day on Saturday. We understand. Trayshawn Holden's another one that's, shown some flashes. We saw him in the spring game. And then Christian Leary is a speedster out of Florida, 10, 500-meter guy who's had a, good camp. And JoJo Earl had a big day on Saturday from our understanding. Had a touchdown reception from Bryce Young. He's a kind of you don't want to say Jalen Waddle because there's only really one Jalen Waddle, but he brings a little bit of that explosiveness, that elusiveness. He's a smaller guy at about 5'9", 175. So, and you may see him I think there's a good chance you'll see him returning punts. So those are some of the guys. I may have left out someone, but off the top of my head, it's a really impressive group, and I think, as Nick Saban said on Saturday, they've got a lot of promise.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned Jalen Waddle. It turns out he's pretty good at returning punts at the NFL level as well.
Yes, he is. I saw that he had a nice one on Saturday.
Yeah, he sure did. Hey, Rodney, we always appreciate it. Hopefully you'll check back in with us very, very soon for the start of the season, but your time is always appreciated here. We thank you.
Okay. Hey, guys, I appreciate it. You take care.
You as well. That is Rodney Orr, at Tider Insider. They're on Twitter on the Michelob Ultra hotline. A superior light beer, low calories, low carbs, and zero fat. Live life to the ultra. We've already heard from Nick Saban. We'll hear more from Nick Saban. Also, Mark Stoops, a big announcement. Following practice there in Lexington, Brian Harsin addressing the students, the freshman students at Auburn, and much more. That's today's edition of Coach Speak. And Pat's Archery and Outdoors keeps you geared up for summer. You got to check out their new rod and reel combos, fishing gear, Costa Del Mar glasses, performance fishing shirts, and more on Highway 78 in Jasper. Pat's Archery and Outdoors. More from Nick Saban on the importance of reps in the new practice schedule.
We haven't been able to practice everything the way we'd like to. And, as I always say, you don't practice things until you get it right. You practice it until you can't get it wrong. That's why repetition's important, and I don't think we've had enough of that yet.
Also, offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, who, by the way, Pat, I don't know if you know this, he was actually there in the spring as well.
Was he?
Yeah, but he got asked a question by a member of the media asking him, what did you see from Bill O'Brien here at fall practice? That's not in the clip and how he responded, but you could tell Coach Saban was a little aggravated, but he went on to say this.
I have a lot of confidence in Bill. He's a bright guy. He's really done a good job of adapting to the system that we had and making some tweaks and changes to actually try to improve it. So, we'll keep on working on it.
Yeah.
So Bill was there in the spring.
He was there in the spring. Saban said, well, he was here in the spring. We actually had an 8-day game and everything.
Or he called plays.
He called plays.
Yeah.
So, but he went, I was waiting for it. It was like, no, he's not going to explode. Dang it.
Almost.
All right. Mark Stoops, he actually names a starting quarterback, and this is what he had to say.
I did meet with the 3 quarterbacks today, and with that being said, I did inform them that we were naming Will, the starting quarterback.
This is what he had to say about former Auburn quarterback and recent Kentucky transfer Joey Gatewood and how that conversation went.
I wanted to talk to Joey privately, and I did that and visited with Joey and told him how much I appreciated how hard he's worked. I know he's been through this before, so I knew it would be especially tough decision, not what he wanted to hear. And so we had that discussion, had a good talk. He handled it completely professional, and really appreciate him. And at that point, he did inform me that he thought it would be in his best interest to enter his name into the portal. So that should happen here soon. I did ask Joey if it was okay for me to talk to you all about that, and I never want to speak for a player. And so, called him specifically after our meeting and asked him if it was okay for me to address it with you all at this time. And he said no problem.
He gone.
He is gone. It's official. He is now in the transfer portal this morning. So just 18 months after he transferred from Auburn.
Couldn't find anybody in administration to enter his
Kentucky.
paperwork over the weekend. Had to wait until the office opened up.
Yeah, had to wait till open this morning in Lexington, but he is officially in the transfer portal.
No surprise, but I do wonder why. I guess you don't want to be disingenuous and lead a kid on, but if you're Mark Stoops, do you not? I guess it's inevitable. You'd rather, if he's gonna transfer, if the decision doesn't go his way anyways, you'd probably rather it happen before you start game planning for your first game and get in the season and maybe get more reps for your next guy.
Yeah, think about Gatewood. He was ranked as the number 1 athlete back in the 2018 recruiting class. The Jacksonville native played in 7 games last year for the Wildcats, earning his first career start against the Georgia Bulldogs. They lost 14-3. He was 15 of 25, for 91 yards passing.
Hey, and look, you can't just solely put this on Gus Malzahn anymore and saying he couldn't develop, because Mark Stoops, he's a hell of a coach, and they got a good coaching staff there in Lexington. Apparently, they couldn't make enough to develop Joey Gatewood. I hate it. He's not going to be able to start, but as I mentioned this morning, Terry Wilson Jr., quarterback at Kentucky. Look, it was obvious he wasn't going to have a job, so he transferred to New Mexico. It just might not be an SEC school where Joey Gatewood, if he's expecting to start, where he's going to be able to land a job.
Well, Joey Gatewood, he intends to compete and contribute to a Power 5 program this year.
Well, we were told by Auburn coaches, in particular, his first year there on the Plains, he could be an NFL tight end. Now, this is kind of going back to the whole Tim Tebow conversation, right? Yeah. If he had chosen to be a tight end 10 years ago. Joey Gatewood could be that guy, but he's dead set on being a quarterback. But if he's going to contribute, will it be maybe at the tight end position? That'd be a heck of a get. Apparently he can catch. He can do it all. Block too.
Don't think it's going to be at the quarterback position.
No, hard to think it is. Incoming freshman at Auburn, starting fall classes. Brian Harsin addressed the freshmen.
These guys have talked about championships. They've done that. They've been a part of it. We have a new staff that hasn't had a chance to do that. And I told our players 8 months ago when I came here, you didn't choose me, but I chose you for the opportunity to be a part of this. And the last 8 months has been unbelievable. And it's really because of the people. I've been asked about my family, our coaches' families, the football part of it. Yes, we've been working very hard on that, and we will continue. And like these coaches just said, every single game we play, we want to win, and we came here to win an SEC championship and another national championship for Auburn.
Just hopefully it will happen during your 4 years here. Probably what he could have followed up with a freshman.
Freshman's fired up.
Yeah, you got to get them behind you, right?
Yeah.
You need them there early. You need them there in the fourth quarter.
That audio was courtesy of the Auburn Opelika News. The video was pretty cool, just seeing that many people in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Really, really cool. That is Coach Speak for today. Pat's Archery and Outdoors is your personal protection specialist with handguns, rifles, shotguns, plus ammo arriving daily. 12 months Amos cash financing. Pat's Archery and Outdoors, Highway 78 in Jasper. We've got CBS Sports announcing part of their schedule for the fall when it comes to college football, and also 5 questions loaded up from Pat and ready to go. Pat Ponders on your way next. 3-Man Front and Jocks 94.5.
This is 3-Man Front.
11:27 on this Monday. Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. Also in the first hour, Nathan King from Auburn Undercover, relaying the information that came from the scrimmages on Saturday. We got more scrimmages coming up. Auburn will scrimmage one more time before the start of the season. Also, Brian Harsin announcing that the public will be invited on the 28th to an open practice. So that we saw that early in spring camp, him opening it up, and we just heard him addressing the students there. So I don't know. It's still a little bit tough to kind of get a read. I said it to Barrett Sallee of CBS Sports when he joined our show on Friday. Pat, kind of hard to get a read on Coach Harsin right now. And that's not a negative thing. It's just he's new, and I don't deciphering and kind of reading tea leaves and some of his responses is tough.
It is, and it's just like, although Nick Saban was in the SEC prior, then obviously you saw him in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins. It took a little bit of filling out in regards to the media and when they started covering him back in 2007. So I think the same will be for Brian Harsin. But talking about scrimmages, I wanted to pass this along. The University of Miami had their first scrimmage of the fall, and it's interesting because they're only going to have 2, Landrum. They're going to have another one, I believe, next weekend. They scrimmage for 2 hours, and all indications are that Derek King had a strong showing. He was 12 of 16 passing for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. According to Manny Diaz, he was phenomenal with running the offense. He extended plays with his legs, and he is a tough guy to defend. Wide receiver Charleston Rambo totaled 60 yards and a touchdown. His touchdown wowed the persons that were there watching it, including a one-handed snag. So again, they will scrimmage one more time And then get this, they will spend a full 2 weeks putting in their game plan for Alabama.
No disrespect, and De'Aaron King's a phenomenal athlete, but the linebacking core that you're going to see from Alabama game one is going to be a little bit different than what you're seeing. Whether it's the twos that you're running against, or I would venture to guess maybe anybody on that roster. And the secondary, I can probably say the same thing.
Manny Diaz, he was phenomenal. I'm quoting now.
Hope the offensive line can stop.
Phenomenal.
Okay, well, like I said, he's an incredible talent. I just think we shouldn't read too much in.
You think he's going to have to be phenomenal against Alabama?
I do. I think they're all going to have to be
They're currently an 18.5-point underdog to Alabama.
Oh. Call Taylor Agricola today. He's been serving the Birmingham area as a financial advisor for over 15 years, and Taylor would like to take a look at your investments and help your money accomplish what you want it to do for you. Again, call Taylor Agricola with Raymond James today, 205-874-HELP. Raymond James and Associates, member New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Another sign that we're closer to the start of the college football season. Your 2021 preseason AP Top 25 is out. Alabama at number 1, not getting all of the first place votes. They get 47. Oklahoma garnering 6 votes. Clemson, 6 votes as well. Ohio State with 1, and the Georgia Bulldogs getting 3. They're at number 5. Of course, Georgia, they got to get some dudes healthy. You've got concerns not only on the offensive line, but at the wide receiver position. We knew about George Pickens, but you had Jackson out. Jermaine Burton still trying to heal. Eric Gilbert is not with the team right now for personal reasons, personal issues that he's having to deal with. And then Fitzpatrick, tight end, he's out as well.
Here are all the players that were out for Georgia on Saturday. You mentioned Gilbert, Jermaine Burton, Karis Jackson, wide receiver, Dominic Blaylock, knee injury, George Pickens, obviously we knew about him, knee. You mentioned John Fitzpatrick, one of the tight ends. He's out for a foot. Jalen Kimber, cornerback, was out because of a shoulder. Darian Kendrick, he was out. He was excused because he was attending a funeral. But offensive lineman Owen Condon also was not present and there at the scrimmage. So Georgia, just looking at it, had 10, 11 players that were unavailable due to the scrimmage on Saturday.
Also in the preseason AP Top 25, A&M at number 6. You've got Florida at 13, LSU at 16. And then after that, no Ole Miss. Ole Miss not getting any love from this poll as they did in the coaches poll. Arizona State actually gets their spot there at number 25 that we saw in the coaches poll, and Arizona State and Herm Edwards, and no turmoil right now or chaos surrounding that.
Yeah, a little bit of
program.
surprise that Arizona State cracked the top 25 instead of the Ole Miss Rebels, but I think it will be a short-lived appearance by the Sun Devils.
More top 25 discussion in just a little bit, but right now it's time for 5 questions prepared by the gentleman to my left. This is what we call Pat Ponders. Always brought to you by our friends at Alabama Roofing Professionals. I'm going to get to visit with our buddy Mike this week. We're going to have a little lunch, grab a little bite to eat there at Soho's Social. He loves talking football. He loves the Braves, and right now those are 2 positive subjects for me. But he can also take care of you. The positive is free roof inspections. Going to warranty any work they do, replacing your roof, also any repairs, the blow-in insulation service. Don't sell them short on that. Keeping your home energy efficient 12 months out of the year. Alabama Roofing Professionals, 205-722-ROOF, ALRoofPros.com.
All right, question number 1. Major League Baseball announced over the weekend that the Field of Dreams game will happen again next season. Who would you like to see playing in the game?
Oh, well.
Honestly, truth be told, I'd much rather the All-Star game be there.
That's a great idea.
I would rather that than any. As great as this game was, it's going to be hard to try and recapture what that atmosphere in that game was, to just throw in 2 random teams. I mean, maybe you could have 2 rivals like maybe the Cubs and the Cards, something like that. That could bring that in, but I think the All-Star game is probably your best bet.
I want to see Cubs and Cardinals because it kind of seems like, just based on the movie, because you had the Yankees and you had the White Sox and those historical, teams, when you think historically speaking, because teams have obviously changed names and cities over the years. But the Cardinals, it seems like, what used to be, was that the Browns? Was that originally?
No.
It was not.
The Browns were the American League team.
That was right.
In St. Louis. St. Louis had 2 teams.
Okay.
The Browns ended up becoming the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. Cool. The Cardinals been around 18.
Were they around pre-18? Was it 84? when the overhanded pitch.
The Cincinnati Reds were the first ever professional Major League Baseball team. The Cardinals were one of the founding members of the National League.
Okay, so Cardinals and Cubs would be the obvious choice if you're going to go historical.
The rumor is that it will be the Cubs. Do not know their opponent, but that
White Sox coming back?
That is now last year was supposed to be the White Sox and the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year it was the White Sox, obviously.
Get the Red Sox. Wouldn't be bad. You had Cubs, Red Sox.
It's interesting because, and it might be the Cubs and Red Sox. The reason why is because the schedule's already come out for next year, and the National League Central teams will play the American League East teams.
Blow everybody's mind and put like Tampa Bay and Miami in there.
Ooh.
Please, they just got those ratings. You want to go ahead and throw them in the toilet?
But see, when I was writing that question, the thing that came to my mind was somehow get Ohtani in that game.
Right? Oh, man.
And so then I'm starting to think like what John just said, man, putting the All-Star game there, would that not be incredible? I think it's in Los Angeles.
He could hit the movie set with one of those shots. He's been hitting.
Unbelievable. All right. Question number 2. Which one of these 3 teams is most likely to finish outside the top 25 when the season ends? Number 8, Iowa State. Number 9, North Carolina. Or number 10, Cincinnati. Which one of those 3 is the most likely to end up out of the top 25?
On the surface, I want to say it's North Carolina, just because of their schedule as I'm pulling it up here. But,
Iowa State, North Carolina, or Cincinnati?
Yeah, I don't think it's Cincinnati. While they got some tests, I still do think that Cincinnati has a pretty solid year. They lost some guys from last year. I don't know if they're going to be as good, but if you're talking outside of the 25, that would have to be a major slide. Iowa State, I still see they got too much coming back. It's got to be North Carolina, right? Wouldn't you think? Because as good as Sam Howell has been, and their schedule, it's nothing to scoff at. And who are some of these other sleepers that we potentially see in the ACC? I think that maybe we're sleeping a little bit on Florida State, who they do get them at home. But if you'll remember that game last year, they're at Virginia Tech to open things up in Blacksburg. Then you get Miami at home. You're at Notre Dame. You're at Pittsburgh and at NC State to close the season. There's a chance they could finish outside of the top 25.
So you think North Carolina's the team?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say it's Cincinnati because as talented as I do believe Iowa State and North Carolina are going to be, I do think Cincinnati overall probably is the better team of all of those. However, Iowa State and North Carolina don't have much on their schedule to where even if they're out of conference or if they trip up a game here or there, the rest of their schedule is rather weak to where if they have 3 losses at the end of the season, that's still a top 25 team. But with Cincinnati, who have Indiana and Notre Dame on their schedule, plus that American schedule, 3 losses with that for a group of 5 team, Grand Power 6, whatever you want to call them, 3 losses at the end of the year, I can't guarantee that they will be in the top 25. So if all these teams have 3 losses, Cincinnati's definitely not in the top 25. So I'll say Cincinnati.
North Carolina is just 8-4 last year, and they're improving under Mac Brown. He's done a great job. Sam Howell, he's great too. But last year it was just it was so Jekyll and Hyde with that football team. You lose at Florida State 31-28. You lose at Virginia 44-41. You get beat by 4 touchdowns versus Notre Dame at home. And then you win at the end of the season to close out the regular season 62-26 over Miami down in Miami Gardens. It was, I don't know, strange. Do they have enough on the defensive side of the ball?
I go with John. I think Cincinnati might be the team that, especially if Ritter gets hurt, quarterback position.
Well, yeah, they're screwed there.
At that point in time, could be. Not predicting he's going to get hurt. I'm just saying if he does get hurt, it's going to be a tough go of it.
Do our first scrimmage with some teams.
All right, next question. Who do you guys think is the most charming head football coach in college football?
Well, it's hard to go against Grandpa. I got to just talk about it, Mac Brown.
He's definitely charming.
Probably Mike Leach.
Ooh, that's another one I thought of.
Because for someone to say those kind of off-the-wall things, even when the team's not doing great and some tough questions need to be asked, you still can't help but chuckle and laugh and kind of enjoy when he has pressers like that. And maybe he, goes a bit too far when he, picks on his players and does something like that. But it's hard to root. It's hard to hear them like, oh God, I really hate that guy. And you're like, it's just Mike Leach. It's fine. It's okay. So I would go with him, and maybe a close second would be Orgeron.
How about Pat Fitzgerald?
Pat Fitzgerald would be there, and I don't know. I mean, he's kind of a charmer. Coach O, just because of, I guess, his, being there from the state of Louisiana, how he deals with the media, he does come off super genuine. Now, Alabama fans would disagree post 2019 game there at Bryant-Denny, and that was not charming to some. But you could probably throw in even a James Franklin. But, I mean, think about it. These guys who are very good with the media and very good at recruiting and drawing guys in and saying the right things. You can call him Smoozer. You can call it whatever you want. But James Franklin kind of seems like that guy.
I wouldn't think that James Franklin, I would not classify him as charming. But I definitely think Mac Brown, who you mentioned first, would definitely probably be number one.
Dabo, at one time, you would have said, he's charming. Oh, shucks.
Not a chance.
Perception change when you have success.
All right, final question for today. Pro Football Focus released their top 6 returning running backs in college football. So I wanted to ask you guys if you agree with this list or who you would move around or add. They had Tank Bigsby at number 1 from Auburn, Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State at number 2, Kennedy Brooks from Oklahoma at 3, Brian Robinson from Alabama came in at number 4, Jerrion Ealy from Ole Miss at 5, and Breece Hall from Iowa State came in at 6. Those were the top 6 returning running backs in college football according to Pro Football Focus. You guys agree with the most part of that list, or is there somebody that's been omitted or somebody you'd like to move around?
Yeah, I do have – no, all are quality, but –
Sure.
Brian Robinson, we haven't seen enough from him, I don't think.
So you probably have Breece Hall ahead of him, right?
Yeah. Breece Hall, he had 1,572 yards rushing last year, almost 6 yards a carry. And then you got to think, what about Kevin Harris? Isn't he planning on playing this season for South Carolina?
At South Carolina. Yeah, I love it.
I thought he was.
He's a great back.
Isaiah Spiller at Texas A&M, he's pretty good. Jarek Broussard of Colorado. In limited time, he had 317 yards in one game last year.
Not sure about Deuce Vaughn, John, at number 2 for Kansas State. How'd your list look?
I probably would. I don't know if I'd still have Deuce on the list. He would drop a decent bit to be right around 6, 7, somewhere in there. I would have Breece a second though. I would have Tank, Breece. I would put Jerrion Ealy. I think I would put.
Would
Brian
you have
Robinson.
Ealy ahead of Robinson?
I'd have Jerrion Ealy ahead of Robinson.
Yeah. I think Robinson, he'd probably be right at 6. But I think at that point I'm going off potential because I know, last season was cut short. But I think had he had a full season, he definitely would be here. So I think I would put him at 6 and probably put Deuce probably 7th.
I'm going to say this. If the guy can obviously stay healthy, but you mentioned Kennedy Brooks. There's a guy named Eric Gray that transferred from Tennessee in that offense for Oklahoma. That is going to be, I think, incredible. I think he's going to have a great season, and he might be viewed as the better running back by season's end.
I don't disagree with that at all. So
that's a great question.
Interesting list, though.
They always
from
are.
Pro Football Focus.
You're a genius.
And that's today's Pat Ponders.
Brought to you by Alabama Roofing Professionals, ALRoofPros.com, 205-722-ROOF. Get that free roof inspection. They will take care of not only you and the Jocks listening here all over the state of Alabama. We've got our buddy Matt McLaren, the Matt McLaren Show, that follows us weekdays here at noon. He's going to be jumping in on this next segment. We got a little worst thing that I've seen. It has to do with some of the secrets from the airline industry. They don't want you to know, but they've been revealed. That's next. 3-Man Front and Jocks 94.5.
3-Man Front, weekdays.
Right here on Jocks.
Jocks 94.5.
11:49, 3-Man Front, Jocks 94.5. Landrum Roberts, Pat Smith, John Saber producing the show. Matt McLaren joining us.
Hello.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. You're actually here.
I know. It's in person. It's wild.
The video screen.
I know. I like to be in here, though.
How was your drive in to our wonderful city?
It's the drive, man, you know.
That's all you get. That's a nice way of saying, yeah.
I put up this thing on Twitter that I was going to get into. But, I mean, it is because anybody, and so many people have made that trip. Because how many times has Alabama played in Dallas? I mean, it's all the time. So many people have made that, whether it's from Birmingham or Tuscaloosa straight to Dallas. And I mean, man,
I've done it, but it helps when you don't have, you don't have an 18-wheeler that turns over in Vicksburg and you're there for 2 hours. And then it helps if you don't get pulled over by the Louisiana Highway Patrol.
Yeah, but Jackson to Meridian, though, that's
the one for me, that leg of the trip that I just, and I don't know what it is, I guess because I'm not excited about anything in that part of Mississippi. Because I like going over the mighty Mississippi. I don't know why, I think it's cool. Like I'm like, oh, there it is, the mighty Miss, you know, there it is. And then you get to Jackson, you're like, all right. Think, oh my God, I have 3 more hours.
I don't know, but that Meridian to Tuscaloosa, that's kind of
it's rough too. But I argued with somebody, not argued, but back and forth on Twitter. I said, man, for me, coming this direction, what makes that not as bad is the fact that, okay, I'm almost to Alabama. And then you see that sweet home sign and you get a little tinge of excitement.
Yes.
At least I did.
The state of champions.
You know, we sing, it's ridiculous. We have our traditions, like it's so silly on a road trip.
So what do you sing when you hit the Alabama?
Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And then my lady friend, she goes, Roll Tide, really loud because she went to Alabama. So every time, same thing.
Speaking of driving, Donahue Auto, one of the great pre-owned selections of automobiles you're going to find anywhere in the country. All you got to do is go to DonahueAuto.com. Luxury cars, they can be affordable, but they don't have lemons there on the lot. You can go check out great selection, great sales staff, service team is unmatched as well. It's DonahueAuto.com. That is DonahueAuto.com. Speaking of travel, we have some flight attendants, kind of like anonymous college football coaches that have gone on the record. 45 dark airline secrets that we're going to share. Not all 45,
we really want to know these?
But some of them. This is the worst thing that I have seen. Not only flight attendants going anonymous, but a few pilots on this as well. Some of these are common sense, but one remarks, the plane is disgusting. Don't walk around barefoot. Definitely don't eat your mint after it falls on the floor.
I really didn't even need them to give me that warning. I would not have done either.
No, this is,
I might have.
This is true. Well,
I might have eaten the mint. If I hadn't already put it in my mouth, I'd probably would have eaten it.
You need to be nice to the flight attendants. Pretty much what happens at a lot of jobs, if you ask for something nicely, they'll usually give it to you. But if you demand it or if you're a jerk, good luck getting anything free. It goes without saying, right?
That's life, as you mentioned.
Sensible.
Yeah.
One of them remarks, I hated being alone so much. I did realize how much time I'd spend alone in hotels or in airports. By the way, we don't wash or replace the blankets or the pillows.
Oh, nice.
Good to know.
All
right. Pilot here. Don't drink the coffee. The water comes from the onboard system that has the fill port right next to the port the lavatories are drained from. The water system routinely fails E. coli checks. Also, when you wash your hands using the same water, make sure you always use the soap. Lastly, don't put your food directly on the tray tables.
Man, I do that all the time.
Oh, yep. An aircraft can have a whole host of parts being broken and still be allowed to fly, but the broken parts just get labeled, recorded, and put on the to-do list the next time it goes to maintenance. So if they tell you we have a minor problem, they're not telling you the truth. A lot of times it is a major issue, not a minor issue.
Yeah, but they wouldn't fly the plane unless the pilot is out of his mind. I mean, he wants to be safe up there as well. And most of those pilots can fly stuff without a problem, even if there's minor malfunctions and whatnot.
This is true. They say, when you ask us to change the temperature, we pretend to do it. Planes are generally colder because if we hit turbulence, warm temps will make the chances of someone puking much higher. No idea why.
I guess that makes sense. Like when you're hot and whatnot, yeah, you're probably more likely to spew.
Yep. Speaking of spewing, The absolute worst thing is pouring Diet Coke on the airplane because it fizzes much longer than any other carbonated drink for some weird reason.
What?
That makes no scientific proof.
Yeah, unless it's more carbonated when it was created. Why would that matter? That's weird. Some of the stuff seems fake.
Yep.
And I think you made this up.
How about this? When a plane is landing at night, they dim the interior lights in case you need to evacuate upon landing. Your eyes are already adjusted to the darkness, so you'll be able to see better once outside the plane.
Now, that seems logical.
Smart. I like that one.
But bumpy stops when you experience a hard landing in bad weather. It's not because of a lack of pilot skills, but in fact, it's intentional. If the runway is covered with water, the airplane has to touch down hard in order to puncture the water layer and prevent hydroplaning.
Keep us safe. That's all that matters.
Hey, we're here to not only entertain, but inform. Hopefully we've done that. We know Matt McLaren will certainly do that. Special thanks to Nathan King, Rodney Orr. The Matt McLaren Show comes your way next this afternoon. During that show, you want to get in a stance and put your hand
in the dirt.
We'll see you.
This is 3 Man Front on Jax 94.5.